students, welcome to my class. In today's class we will discuss about the one of the sensitive sense organs, that is nothing but the eye. Okay, right. So first we see the structure of the eye. So when we see the structure of the eye, we have to observe the layers present around the eyeball. So the outermost layer, the top layer present around the eyeball is called sclera. Now we see the formation of sclera, means how it is arranged around the eyeball. So very simple, the sclera is the toughest layer, it protects the eyeball, and when you observe the anterior part of the eye, so it overlaps the eyeball and it is projected out and it forms as cornea. So this is very important. So cornea is the part of the eye, so where we donate the eye, means in the eye donation the cornea is removed. So cornea is the structure formed from the outermost, the tough layer, the sclerotic layer. The second one is choroid layer, so middle one. So choroid layer, it contains the many number of the blood vessels, that is very important, but the color of the choroid is black. Here at the anterior side it is black in color. The most important thing is the choroid layer, it forms three structures. Okay, so one is iris, nothing but the choroid layer which is formed at the anterior part of the eyeball is called iris, and the iris, it left the place at the center. The place where it has left is called pupil. So pupil is nothing but the space present in the choroid layer. Okay, just in front of the lens. Next, another one is from the choroid layer only. Another the suspended filaments which are formed from the ciliary body or ciliary filaments is also one of the parts of the choroid membrane. So here you can understand that the choroid is the middle layer, it forms the iris and also pupil and also ciliary body, and this ciliary body contains the ciliary muscles. This ciliary muscles, it holds the biconvex lens which is present at the anterior part of the eye. So this is about the choroid. Next, coming to the third one, this is the innermost very sensitive layer and very important layer. So that is nothing but the retina. So retina is the screen of the eye and it contains many number of cells. Those cells are called rods and also cones. These rods and cones, especially when you observe, they contain a chemical that is called rhodopsin. The rods contain the rhodopsin and the cones contain the iodopsin. And rhodopsin is the chemical which is useful for the night vision, and also iodopsin is useful for the day vision. So that's why when you observe cones, they are useful for the day vision, means in the during daytime only we can identify the colors and we can see all the objects very clearly. So for the identification of the different objects and also for observing the things very clearly, the cones are useful because they contain the iodopsin chemical. And you know that during the night time we can't see the things properly, so that's why the rhodopsin play the vital role in the observation of the things during the night time. So these rods and cones, where are they present? So they are present on the retina. Okay, so the retina contains the millions of rods and also cones, and especially when you observe, this is the optic nerve. So where the retina meets the optic nerve, here you don't find any type of the sensitive cells, photoreceptors like rods and cones. So that place is called the blind spot. So blind spot is nothing but the place where the rods and cones are completely absent. Now coming to the another spot is also written here. This is nothing but the yellow spot. So this yellow spot is also called fovea. So in fovea, you know that the more number of cones are present, that is very important, because the cones are useful. Already I told you that it is very useful. Cones identify the light, means during the daytime they are useful for the identification of the different things. So when you focus on a certain thing, when you concentrately, when you watch the things, then you know that these fovea, means the cells present in the yellow spot, nothing but the cones, are they work very properly, they work very actively, and also they are useful for the identification of the things in a sharp manner. So thus the fovea is useful for the identification of things in a quick manner. Okay, so that is about the retina. Now you have seen sclera, outermost layer which forms the cornea, and the middle layer is choroid, which forms the iris, pupil, ciliary body, and this ciliary body holds the lens, biconvex lens. And also regarding the retina, you have observed that the rods and cones and also the blind spot and also yellow spot. Now come to the another important thing, that is the complete, if you take eye as a chamber, so there are two chambers in the eye. So the chamber which is in front of the lens, this lens is biconvex lens. In mammals, biconvex lens is present, and in front of the lens, the chamber is called aqueous chamber. Aqueous means aqua, water. So water like substance is present in the aqueous chamber. Next, coming to the just behind the this biconvex lens, you are finding another chamber. This is called vitreous chamber. It contains the jelly like substance. Okay, right. Now we will see the how does the eye work. So suppose if you see, when you see the things like different type of plants or animals or any other kind of plants or animals, so the light enters, or otherwise the light focuses on the lens. So for the focusing of the objects, you know that it should be open, means the size of the pupil is increased or decreased according to the object what we see. Suppose you know that when the light falls on the eyeball, you know that we can't tolerate that much of suddenly light falls on the eyeball. Then what happens? We should not allow the light to enter our retina. That's why we try to close the eye. Then during that time, automatically this pupil is closed. Otherwise, when you want to see the things very clearly, so you try to open the eyeball, you want to focus on the things, then this pupil increases its size. Means the increasing and decreasing of the size of the pupil, it like a diaphragm of the camera, it opens and closes, and thus it receives the light, and thus receive light through the pupil, through the lens, it reaches the aqueous chamber, through the vitreous chamber, it reaches the retina. So it falls on the retina. You know that, so suppose if you take any object, like if it is like a straight way, so the original object, so it falls on the retina in the inverted position. Then when it forms on the retina, okay, so here, not here, when it forms on the retina, so you know that here different type of cells are present, I told you. Those cells are nothing but rods and cones. The chemical composition of the rods and cones is changed. So due to the changes in the chemical composition of the rods and cones, automatically some electric impulses are produced, and these electrical impulses are transported to the brain. So they are transported to the brain through the optic nerve. Okay, right. So this optic nerve, when it carries the impulses to the brain, so the original object what we have seen in the atmosphere, so again it comes as it is, means what we have seen originally, so it is shown as it is, or it is analyzed in the brain how the original object is we have seen. Okay, so thus the brain analyzes the impulses taken by the optic nerve. Okay students, later you know that, so we get a different type of, means the people will get a different type of the eye defects. Okay, so they are nothing but the generally two types of, one is myopia, another one is hypermetropia. Okay, so myopia and also hypermetropia. So this is myopia is called short sight, and this is called far sight, or the myopia and also hypermetropia. Okay, so short sight is caused because suppose you know that when the lens work properly, means nothing but when the ciliary muscles work properly, so the objects, means what the objects we see, they are fallen on the retina properly. Suppose if these muscles, means these ciliary muscles are not working properly, then what happens? So the inverted image of the original object, either it falls in front of the retina or behind the retina. If it is formed in front of the retina, so then we can't see the object properly. So that type of the eye defect is called myopia. Okay, so this is corrected by so concave lens. Okay, so if it is found after the retina, so that is called hypermetropia. So this is corrected by convex lens. Okay, so these are the general eye defects which are caused by the defects in the ciliary muscles, and when the ciliary muscles are affected, so automatically the lens is not held properly by the muscles, and due to that the image will not form on the retina properly, then it leads some different type of the eye defects, and they are corrected by the concave lens and convex lens. You know that not only these different type of eye diseases are there which are caused by the viruses, and also different damage of the cornea, and also vitamin deficiency. So these are other different type of diseases caused to the eye, so by the various reasons. Okay students, so not only this, if you see the animals like the buffalo or any other animals, nocturnal animals, you know that their eyes will glitter during the night time. So try to find out the reason why do the animals eye glitter in the during the night time. So thank you students for watching this video. To my class. So in today's class I am going to show you the parts of the eye very clearly. So to conduct this activity I have collected the eye of the sheep, and you are observing the external structure of the eye already very clearly. So the eye is completely surrounded by the fat tissue and also the connective tissue layer. First I want to remove the fat and also the muscles surrounding the eye. So later we will see the clear structure of the eye very clearly. Right. So first I am removing the external fat and also muscles. So when I removed already, you are finding the eyeball very clearly, and you are finding the anterior parts of the eye and the posterior part, nothing but the optic nerve also you are finding very clearly. First I want to show you the anterior, the sclerotic layer which covers the eyeball, and just behind that layer you are finding the black color layer. So that is nothing but the choroid layer, you know very clearly. So when you observe the sclerotic layer, it is covering the complete eyeball. The shining part of the eyeball is nothing but the cornea. So all those parts we will see very clearly. Now you see the sclerotic layer very clearly, which is completely covering the eyeball, and just behind that again you can find the black color layer, so the choroid layer. Okay, so the choroid layer is also having the blood supplying, and at the center of the eye you are finding the black structure, but that is not the layer. You know that that is the empty space from the light enters the eye. Okay, right. So now you can see two layers very clearly, one is choroid, another one is the sclerotic layer. Okay, right. So now I want to dissect the eyeball, so I am cutting the eyeball horizontally, so by using a sharp blade. So then it is very tough, I found very tough to cut the eyeball, because it is completely very means it is completely mucus like membrane. So even though when I cut the eye, I know that the eye contains the fluid, so I thought that this fluid will come out when I cut the eyeball, but my exception was, means what I expected is wrong. So the fluid is not coming from the eye, very not coming very easily. So at the same time I found that the cutting of the eye layer is very tough, because even it is looking very transparent and very means very delicate, it is very hard. So it is very hard, more than I expected. Finally I cut the sclerotic layer, so external layer, gently, and I found two pieces. So you are finding, so the posterior and also anterior parts, and once I cut the eyeball into two pieces, finally I got the two pieces, the posterior and also the anterior parts. Now you can see very clearly the posterior part is sky blue in color, and the anterior part, posterior part, you can see sky blue color, and the anterior part is, you can see black color, and also it is having the fluid. So this fluid is not like water, it is like jelly like substance. So when I touch the posterior part, you can see sky blue color, and the anterior part, when I touch with finger, so the fluid is like a very viscous fluid. So this fluid is nothing but the vitreous chamber, and also the fluid is jelly like substance. Okay, so at the center, when I observe this the anterior part, at the center you are finding the lens, also you are finding uh, the gloves of my hand. So nothing but it is indicating the structure of the pupil, the hole present at the center of the eye. At the same time, you can see the lens also. So when we see the vitreous chamber, otherwise the fluid present in the vitreous chamber is having the lens also. Later I will extract the lens from this chamber also. So before that, we see the anterior layers. I am separating the external and also middle layer. So external layer you are finding white color, and the middle layer, so nothing but the choroid layer, so it is black in color. You are finding the black color layer very clearly. So I am separating the black color layer from the vitreous chamber, otherwise that jelly like substance. So but the black color layer is surrounding a transparent lens like structure also you are finding, and that lens very clearly. So you are finding the layer also very clearly, that lens also you are observing, and here you can find that filaments also connected to the black layer, so ciliary muscles, and at the center of the black membrane you are finding the transparent lens. Okay, so all of you know that the mammals contain the lens. So this lens is nothing but the biconvex lens. Very clearly you can observe the parts. Okay, so vitreous chamber contains the biconvex lens and fluid and black color membrane. Now you see the anterior parts very clearly now. So white color one is the outer sclerotic membrane, and the sclerotic membrane is forming the cornea. So I will show you the cornea also, very tough layer cornea is also. I am pointing the cornea, and you are finding a hole. So now you can see the hole very clearly. So this hole is nothing but very clearly pupil. Through the pupil only the light enters the eyeball. Later through the lens it reaches the final part, nothing but the retina. So thus you can find all the structures very clearly. Okay, so the posterior retina you found sky blue colored and black color layer. So now I am separating the lens from the vitreous chambered fluid, nothing but the jelly like substance. So very clearly you can see. So how beautiful is this? So you can see the lens very clearly. I got the lens into my hands. So this is the lens present in the mammalian eye. Okay, so the jelly like substance you can see very easily sliding over my hands, and it is taking time to collect the lens also. Okay, so anyway, I think you found all the parts of the eye very clearly. The posterior retina, which is having the nerves, and which forms as the optic nerve, because all the nerves from the retina are united, and they form as the optic nerve. So this optic nerve supplies the information to the brain. So this is the posterior part of the eyeball, and in the anterior parts we have seen all the parts very clearly. So please share this. Hello students, so welcome to my class. In today's class we will discuss about the another important sensory organ, nothing but the ear. So ear not only plays the function of the hearing, and also it plays vital role in the to maintain the body posture. So to maintain the equilibrium of the body, it plays a major role. So first we see the structure of the ear, and also later we see the functioning of the ear. First we see the structure. So the ear contains three major parts. One is external ear, the second one is middle ear, another one is the internal ear. So the external ear contains the three major parts. One is the outermost the ear lobe, which is also called pinna. This pinna is useful to receive the sound waves and to make them uh, means to concentrate all the sound waves to into the auditory meatus. This pinna helps. So auditory meatus is nothing but a tube what you are observing. So it contains glands like ceruminous glands and also some sebaceous wax glands, and which are useful, which release some glue like substance, wax like substance to prevent the entry of the dust particles to the eardrum. The third one is eardrum, which is also called tympanum. So this is the most important part of the external ear. So because when it collects the sound waves, it vibrates. So these are the three parts. One is earlobe or pinna, second one is auditory meatus, and the third one is eardrum. These are the three parts of the external ear. And coming to the middle ear contains three bones. So one is malleus, another one is incus, third one is stapes. So the stapes is the smallest bone in the human body, and these bones are not fixed. They can move, means they can vibrate when they receive the sound waves from the tympanum or eardrum. Okay, right. So next coming to the third one, this is the inner ear. The inner ear is the most important ear because it is the only part which can understand the sound, or which collects the sound waves and also transport the impulses to the brain. So the inner ear contains the three parts. One is semicircular canals. These three are the semicircular canals, and this head-like structure of like a snail is called vestibule. Vestibule and semicircular canals both together called vestibular apparatus, and the third one is this structure is called cochlea. Means the inner ear contains the three parts. One is semicircular canals, another one is vestibule, and the third one is cochlea. And these semicircular canals are three, and this one is vestibule. So these two parts play the vital role in the maintenance of the body posture. Okay, right. Next, coming to the another one is cochlea. So this cochlea is like the shell of the snail, and coming to the internal structure of the internal arrangement of the cochlea. So it contains three chambers. The scala vestibuli, middle one is scala media, and this one is scala tympani. The layer present between these two chambers is called vestibular membrane, this one, and the layer present in between these two layers is called basilar membrane. Okay, right. So have you understood the layers? Two layers, vestibular membrane, basilar membrane. Vestibular and basilar membrane, they divide the chamber, means the inner chamber of the cochlea into three chambers: scala vestibuli, media, and tympani. These middle one contains the fluid is called endolymph, and this anterior and posterior chambers contain the fluid called perilymph. Endolymph is the inner one, middle one contains the fluid is called endolymph, and the anterior and posterior chambers contains the lymph is called perilymph. Okay, right. Now, so the very important thing is this basilar membrane. So where do you find basilar membrane? This is the basilar membrane. So this basilar membrane, it contains many number of cilia. Okay, so these cilia all together form like a organ. That organ is called the organ of Corti or the Corti organ. Okay, right. So organ of Corti is present in the it is related to the basilar membrane, and it contains the endolymph. Okay, right. So these are the parts of the ear. So external ear, middle ear, and also the internal ear. Now coming to the functioning. So when the eye receives the sound waves from the external sources, you know that, so finally they strike the tympanum, and the tympanum gets the vibrations, and once the tympanum is vibrated, so these vibrations are transmitted through the bones of the middle ear, nothing but through the malleus, incus, and stapes. Finally they reach the cochlea. So actually this cochlea, it contains the two openings. Okay, so two openings will be there, but they are not completely open. So through one of the openings, so oval chamber and also window chamber we say, okay. So through the oval chamber, the this steps is connected to the middle part of the middle chamber of the cochlea. Nothing but, so I want to say you that once the sound vibrations are reached till the steps, those vibrations are entered the endolymph. The fluid is vibrated. The fluid becomes like waves. These waves they create when the fluid is vibrated in the nothing but the endolymph is vibrated. You know that I already told you that the basilar membrane contains the cilia like structures. They are nothing but the receptors. So sensory receptors, auditory receptors. So those receptors unitedly all those collectively called as organ of Corti. So indirectly where are they present? They are present in the inside the cochlea. So all the receptors all together they form into as cochlear nerve, and thus the sound vibrations through the receptors they are transmitted to the brain. At the same time, you are finding another nerve, vestibular nerve, because I told you that the vestibular apparatus, nothing but the semicircular canals and vestibule, both together they form into the vestibular apparatus. So they form the vestibular nerve, which is useful to maintain the body posture. At the same time, here in the middle ear, one tube is present. This tube is called Eustachian tube. So this Eustachian tube also plays vital role for the maintenance of the body posture. So Eustachian tube, semicircular canals, vestibule all together they are useful for the maintenance of the equilibrium of the body. So thus you can understand that the ear contains the three parts: external ear, three bones of the middle ear, and semicircular canals, vestibule and cochlea of the inner ear, and the structure of the cochlea. And when you come to the vestibule, vestibule also contains two parts again. Anterior part is called sacculus and posterior part is called utriculus. So anyway, it is not given very clearly in the textbook, but whatever may be, this is the structure of the ear and the functioning of the ear. Students, I think you have understood the structure and function of the ear very clearly, and the role of the ceruminous glands present in the auditory meatus, and also cochlear nerve, vestibular nerve all together. Okay, so we see the next sensory organs in the next class. So thank you students for watching this video. Hello students, welcome to my class. In today's class we will discuss about other two important sensory organs. So they are nothing but the nose and also the tongue. Now first we see the nose. So you know that the nasal septum, all of you know about the nasal septum. So what is nasal septum? So when you see the external nose part, nose region, so through the external nares our nose is opened. So you know that inside the nose two chambers you are finding, they are called nasal chambers or nasal cavities. So the two nasal cavities are separated by the nasal septum. So how many chambers? Two. So they are called the nasal cavities. So in the nasal cavities, you know that actually two regions will be there. One is vestibular region, another one is olfactory region. So generally our nose it means it filters the dust particles to prevent the entry of the dust particles into the lungs. So hair is located, you know that. So at the region where the hair is present, that generally that region is the outermost region. So what we call is the vestibular region, and just behind that you find the reddish structure. So inside the nose you can find, so that structure is called the olfactory region. So but the structure of the means the sense of smell is not as complex as the structure of eye or ear. So it is very simple. So because you know that the olfactory region it contains the mucus. So this is very important. So mucus, always you know that now the nasal cavities are in the moist condition, because so for the sense of smell the moist condition is very important. At the same time that moisture is also, it works as air conditioner when we inhale the air. So to make it to our body temperature, the mucus also plays vital role. At the same time, here the mucus is related to the sense of smell. So students, so what is the role of mucus means? So when you inhale something, when you receive the smell, so the smell is nothing but one type of chemical substance. This chemical, so you know that through the process of the diffusion, you know, so when it reaches finally to the nasal chambers, so this chemical what is transported or what is coming through the air, it is diffused into the water. So where do you find this water? This water is present in the mucus of the nasal chambers. So thus the chemical present in the, otherwise the smell related to the, otherwise the chemical of the smell it is diffused into the water of the mucus of the nasal chambers. So at the same time just near the mucus only there are different kinds of the receptors are there. They are nothing but the olfactory receptors. So these olfactory receptors, they take the sense of smell. So according to the chemical what we have taken, so that that information is sent to the brain through the olfactory receptors. So thus very easily the olfactory receptors sending the message to the brain from the olfactory region of the nasal chambers. So it is very simple. But so the chemical what we are taking, it should be dissolved in the water of the mucus. Okay, right. Next, coming to the tongue, this is another important one. So here the tongue is useful for the relate to the sense of taste. Okay, right. So the tongue contains the taste buds. Similarly, how the smell is related to the water, here also the saliva plays a vital role, because if any substance which is not dissolved in the saliva, we cannot take the sense of taste also. Okay, so because when you chew the food material, the chemicals, whatever the proteins, carbohydrates or different materials, sour, sweet or different kinds of materials what we take, so they are mixed with the saliva. So after the mixing with saliva, it enters the taste bud, like a pot like structure you are finding. So here I have written saliva and food. These two together, they are mixed and they form like a juice. This juice is having the chemical nature. The nature of the chemical is taken by the receptors. These receptors are taste receptors. So these taste receptors, where are they present? In the tongue. So finally they send the message directly to the brain. So if there is no saliva, you can't identify the taste, because the chemical is not dissolved. If the chemical is not dissolved, they can't take the perception. Okay, that's why. So the food should be mixed in the saliva, then only we can easily identify the taste. So that's why the juicy materials are, we feel more taste than the solid materials. Okay, that is also one of the reasons. So anyway, here papillae are present on the tongue. So three types of papillae are present: circumvallate, filiform and also pungiform papillae are present. And mostly at the tip of the tongue you find the sweet and also salt related receptors. At the borders you find the sour receptors, and at the means where going behind means near the throat region, so the back to the tongue, so bitter receptors are present. So we say generally the six type of tastes, but you know that the spicy material, spiciness is not the taste, it is the one type of feeling we get, but that is not actually not called as the taste. Okay, so not only this umami, this is the taste of the meat, and some other materials artificially we are adding different type of chemicals to the for the flavoring of the food materials. So that is also considered as a metallic taste. So thus we take different kinds of the materials, means food materials, and we can identify the thousands of food items taste, and also different kinds of different materials smell also we can feel. Thus the nose and tongue they play wider role in the identification of the smell and also taste of the thousands of food materials and also thousands of chemicals. Okay, so these are very simple, but these two are the chemoreceptors, because they mostly related to the perception of the chemicals of the smell of the chemical or taste of the chemical. So that's why these are called chemoreceptors. Suppose if you take eye, that is, they are called photoreceptors. The receptors present in the eye. What are the receptors? Rods and cones are the photoreceptors. And in the structure of ear, basilar membrane contain the receptors I told you. They are called the sensory receptors. Sorry, they are the auditory receptors. But here these also receptors, olfactory receptors and gustatory receptors we say, but these are the mostly they take the smell and also taste of the chemicals. To that's why they are called chemoreceptors. Okay, students. So in the next class we see the structure of skin very clearly. Okay, right. Thank you. Hello students, welcome to my class. In today's class, so we are going to discuss about the last sense organ, that is nothing but the skin. So in last classes we have discussed about the structure of eye, ear and also nose and also tongue. So finally we see the last but most important sensory organ, nothing but the skin. So it is the largest part, means largest organ in the human body, and the skin contains two layers. One is the epidermis and the other one is the endodermis, which is also called dermis. The epidermis contains three layers. So those three layers are stratum corneum, and just below that granular layer, and finally the Malpighian layer. So stratum corneum is nothing but it is a non-living layer. So it contains it is nothing but a protective layer, so which prevents the entry of the bacterium and also dust particles. So it is nothing but the outermost layer which protects the skin and which protects the body from the external materials like microorganisms or any other dust particles. So granular layer is the living layer, so it contains the living cells. So these cells, especially when you observe, they are produced from the Malpighian layer, which is continuously dividing and produces the new cells, because you know that the cells in the skin rapidly they are shed off and the new cells are produced. So thus the Malpighian layer is the producing layer, and these three layers together called as epidermis. Next, coming to the dermis. The dermis is the most important vital layer, because all the parts what we discuss in the skin, they are deeply located in the dermis region only. Okay, suppose if you see here all the blood vessels, okay, nerves, nerve endings, and if you see the hair, so externally hair you may observe, but the roots of the hair and hair follicles, all those things are located in the dermis, nothing but in the endodermis only they are present. And you know that the sweat glands and the oil glands, they are also present in the dermis, but through the tubes, peripherally they are opened with the help of the pores. So in the stratum corneum you find the pores of the sweat and also pores of the oil glands or sebaceous glands. The only pores are externally opened in the epidermis, but their original structures are located in the endodermis. So not only this, you know that in the human body, you studied in the animal tissues, especially the adipose tissue, one of the connective tissues. So the adipose tissue is nothing but the fat storage tissue. So fat storage tissue, where do you find? Just below the skin, just beneath the skin you will find. That's why here you can find some fat globules also. These fat globules are nothing but they are also located in the endodermis. Thus the endodermis is the major part which contains all types of the materials related to the skin. Okay, now if you see these are the two parts in the structure of the skin. And coming to the functions, and the skin plays vital role, especially regarding it contains a different type of the receptors. You know that the eye contain the photoreceptors, the ear contain the auditory receptors, and nose and tongue, I told you that they are the chemoreceptors. But finally when you observe the skin, it contains the various type of receptors. Generally we know that the sense of touch is related to the skin, but when you observe, not only that, different functions are done by the skin. Suppose if you take tactile receptors present in the skin, they are useful to know the sense of touch. At the same time, Pacinian receptors, they bear the pressure. So we know the sense of pressure because of the Pacinian receptors, and also the thermal receptors. So we feel the cold, we feel the hot, because it is nothing but the receptors, nociceptors, which are providing the sense of temperature and thus we protect our body from the external, so thermal related sensations, okay, sense related matters. So thus these are the different type of receptors located in the endodermis of the human body. And not only that, the other major function of the skin is it is a thermoregulatory organ, because when our body is gets more temperature from the external environment, so automatically the blood vessels, the supply of the blood is increased to the body parts, especially to the skin. And you know that the blood contains water, so the water enters the sweat glands, and through the sweat gland, through the sweat pipes or tubes, it comes to the sweat pores, and thus our body becomes very cool. It becomes like a protecting layer. So thus it is not only for the sense of touch, and also it is mostly regulates the temperature. So thermoregulatory organ we say, the skin is thermoregulatory organ. So but the sense of touch is changed from one place to another place of the human body. Suppose if you take the palms, and also if you take the lips, the sense of touch will be very sensitive. But if you take the sole region, so it is not so means it is not as soft as the lips and also palms. So thus the anyway our body is completed, it can take the sense of touch also. So at the same time, children, you should keep your body very clean, because the skin easily affected by the different diseases related to the bacterial, viral, fungal, and also nutrition. Due to the malnutrition also you may be affected by the diseases. So that's why always keep your body very clean, and thus you can protect your body, because especially the leprosy, like bacterial diseases and measles and different type of diseases, they cause the they cause some rashes, and also some malnutrition also, they will affect on the color of the skin, and also some pigments, if they lack the if the skin lacking some pigment, then also they cause the different type of diseases. That's why keeping in the mind, you should always keep your body very clean. At the same time, take healthy food to keep your skin glow. Okay, so okay students, so this is about the skin. So all the sense organs are completed. So if you have any doubt, so you can ask your teachers related to these topics. Okay, thank you students.